Hello. Today
Hello.
we are going to be talking to Ellen Ashcraft, who is joining us from Westland, Oregon. Welcome, Ellen. Happy to
Welcome,
have you.
Ellen. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I know both of you from listening to all your podcasts.
You wouldn't be surprised to know that most people say that when they come on the podcast because they've been listening and we feel familiar, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like watching, TV. Like if I saw the Fonz, I would feel like he
Right?
was familiar.
The
The
fawn.
fawns of all
I
Boy,
love
did
people.
that age me.
Like, really?
I know who that is.
I'm gonna cut that.
Yeah,
I think it's funny.
me too.
Well, just like something from very young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Anyway,
Well,
welcome, Ellen.
Thank you.
yeah, we're happy to have you here. And people on YouTube can see, but you have a beautiful studio. You're an artist and
Oh, thank
Mhm.
you.
coming into your own with that. So tell us your story with adoption, being an adoptee. How's
Okay, I was born in New York State. It was a private adoption. My parents tried for children for like 9 years, and my mom had a stillbirth right
mm,
before me.
that's like my
Mm.
So
mother. That's my
she
mom.
did. So
Same
sad.
story. Yeah,
And
it's
they,
hard.
didn't deal with that kind of stuff.
No,
And it's just like move on.
move
So
on.
the story I was given is after she lost the baby, she went back to work as a bookkeeper. And she says that a lawyer came in and was like, "Why are you back at work?" And so she told him, I lost the baby. And he said, "Oh, I know a girl in trouble. And
Mm.
so might have a baby for you." But that, of course, is not the truth. um, yeah. So it turns out, I don't know how to do this in order. Well, I met my birth mom. I found her after searching, from my late 20s until found her when I was 50.
It's a long
Um,
Wow,
time.
that took a
yeah,
Yeah.
I
long
mean,
time.
off and on, like when my kids were little, I didn't really have a lot of time, and pre-internet and all of that, I kind of exhausted all my possibilities. But uh so the truth is that my birth mother I was adopted by a Greek American couple,
hmm
and a friend of theirs owned a restaurant, of course, Greek restaurant, and in Utica, New York, I think, or Rome. I'm not really sure. But anyway, my birth mom worked for him and told him she had to quit because she, was starting to show. And so he made the connection with my birth family, is how I found out after the
Okay.
fact. Yeah. And
I wonder,
yeah.
what did you ever get to the bottom of why those facts were
Yeah.
switched?
I
It's
think
not that
just
different of a story.
Yeah,
No.
I think because we'd go back every couple years to New York State. We moved to California for my dad's work when I was 3 or 4 years old, and I think to make sure I couldn't find out
Oh,
anything,
Mm.
because the story was always, we don't know anything, we just know she was young.
it
And
wouldn't be hard to find with the Greek restaurant story.
exactly. Plus,
hmm
I always heard this man's name whenever we went back. And my mom would get like, I knew her so well that she would get a weird look on her face, like when they would talk about this man and change the subject. So,
Did you
this-
later feel, mad about that? That that it was a bit duplicitous that to this elaborate story and withholding
kind of,
information? Did you later like, hey, hold on?
yeah, I mean, I never addressed it with my birth parents because my mom
Your
she's
adoptive parents.
yeah, adoptive
No.
parents. My mom was a very dear person, and whenever I would bring anything up, she would just start crying.
Yeah.
And which she's the last
Yes.
person you want to make I mean, I think a lot of people have that happen. Um, yeah, so I never brought it up with her. I never let her know that I found my birth mom, because it would just be too much for her to handle, I think. And she was kind of older, and I think there would be no benefit to telling her at that point.
There's another adoptee having to
Yeah. I was gonna say.
shoulder the all the responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So, yeah,
I
I
was
don't,
I was thinking about that all the times. Like I tried to bring up little things growing up and just the hurt look
Mm-hmm.
That
So
would,
unfair. It's just,
it
you know,
wasn't, I
it's
don't even
just
know if it's
this.
intentional, but right away the look, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of don't.
Like
Yeah.
we're being bad or something.
Right. It's
Yes, like you're
their
being
pain
bad.
is way more important than our knowledge.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, well, go on with your story. Just had
Okay.
to
I don't remember where I left it off.
sideline with
We'll
my.
start with at the, so,
So
so
you
now we
go,
know the,
so
yeah,
yeah,
the origin.
she was a waitress in the Greek diner.
Yeah, she was 18 years old. And so they got with a lawyer, I guess, and she gave birth to me, and I guess she had me for about I was born on the 17th, and I joined my parents on the 21st.
Hmm.
And so she said when she was in the hospital, she got to hold me a lot, and the nurses were really nice to her, which is kind of different, but I think it's because it's a private adoption, probably not like the people that go to a mother's home. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
probably meaner to those girls. I don't know.
Mhm.
But anyway, she went down, she knew where I went because she saw the paperwork.
Mm.
She spied it when they were in the elevator with the attorney with her sister. She could see my parents' names.
Oh,
And
she
so,
could. Wow.
yeah. And so they went down to the parking lot, and I guess the attorney came. They're sitting in her sister's car, and the attorney came and took me from them from the car, which it sounds like a drug deal sort
It
It's
does.
so, it's so painful. It's like, just
I
even
mean, it is a
yeah,
deal, right?
it's a deal. Like I think my birth mother had the same very kind nurses, but they knew she was giving me away. She was with me for several days because I have some letters about it. But then
Oh,
it's like this handoff,
yeah.
and then off you go. I mean,
Yeah.
just in a car. Think of that. It's just so.
Yeah.
So then were
Mm.
your parents there when the handoff happened, or did the lawyer, where was it? This,
I don't know because I don't have that part of the story from them, but I believe they were in their car, and I believe the attorney walked me over to their car.
Mm.
So, yeah.
so then you go home and then you moved to California. And did they adopt any other kids?
Yeah, before we left New York State, we adopted, or they adopted my younger brother,
Mm.
and he was through, I don't know, an adoption agency. I actually have memories of going to get him, and so, I can still picture like the room, like they brought him out and we got to see him, and then they put him back in the room, and
Mm.
I remember crying because I thought, we weren't going to get to keep him. I don't, I was little, I was like 4. And
Yeah.
then, but so that's how we got him. And then we moved to California, and I had 2 really good friends down the street. And this kind of leads into how I found out I was adopted because their mother,
Oh, so when they adopted your brother, they didn't tell you you were adopted?
no, I thought that's how everyone got babies.
That's
It's so
so
weird.
interesting.
Like
Oh
it's a
my
shopping
gosh.
experience. Yeah, I remember,
A
being in,
shopping experience.
I wanted to name him Billy. And, no, in the family, they name babies after an older, like a grandparent, so, oh no, what do you think of this name? And, but so
That
my
is just
friends,
mind
their
blowing.
Yeah,
I
you're right.
know their mother got pregnant, and I was just like probably uncomfortably fascinated with this whole experience because I was over there all the time. And so I remember asking lots of questions like how the baby got in there, how come the baby, how come the baby, came from their mother. Like I still remember being
I
really
thought they came from an office.
yeah, exactly.
Where you chose them in a room and
Yeah. And so I don't know if they would have told me ever or how they would have told me, but it sort of forced their hand. And so they said, well, some people have their baby grow in the mom, and then some other babies come, like your brother, a young girl had the baby and couldn't take care of him. So that's the same thing that happened to you. So that was the story that I was
okay.
given.
Was
Yeah.
the other mom down the street kind of like you need to your daughter's overly fascinated?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
It's just,
Kind
gosh,
of
that's,
hilarious. I laugh
yeah.
about it now.
Well, you
Just
can
I
laugh
was,
about it now, but it's sad circumstance, right? Like it's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
thinking of babies like being handed off just always just
well, and
breaks my
also just to, I mean, again, people just, especially that era, thinking blank slates, they don't need to know anything.
Exactly.
yeah, it's just the narrative.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
then
So,
so
did you go home and ask your parents after this
oh,
conversation with the neighbors?
oh yeah. I was always asking my mom. I
And
mean, it
still nothing, still like
nothing.
you're not you were,
No, no, they told me I was adopted,
okay.
okay,
but that's sort of
that
her.
was it.
Yeah, that's what made them figure out a story that, okay, we gotta address this
The time has come.
because she's driving me crazy. No, I was driving
Yeah.
my mother crazy asking about.
And then did you keep driving your mother crazy? And then there was no.
I think at some point she was, I don't remember, but I think she
Yeah.
probably was like, no, it became well known that if I asked too much about this, it would upset her.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I sort of, I never wanted to be adopted. Like I know that were some kids on the playground that were bullied for it. And so
Mm.
I told my parents, I don't want you to tell anybody. I don't want anyone to know, which they probably thought as a
They
big,
were grateful. Oh.
yeah. Yeah. And they were great people. I
This
mean,
is a secret we don't have a problem keeping.
yeah, we're happy to do that with you.
Yeah.
In fact, there's this one family that adopted like a grade school age girl, which, kudos
Yeah.
for them. I think there are, adoption. I'm not anti-adoption, but I remember their mother coming up to me and saying, so, we adopted our daughter, your daughter too. And I was just like, I went to my
Oh,
mom, don't tell people that. I was in later grade school ages. And anyway, so a lot of my friends never knew growing up. I don't know how they didn't know. I'm like 5'9" in sixth grade, and I'm taller than my dad at that point. They were
That's
kind of
kind of how
shorter
I
than
was too. It's
Greek people. Yeah.
like towered over everybody, hunched
Yeah.
over because I'm so
yeah, you're
insecure
like,
about it and
Yeah. They would say, oh, I have
shirking.
tall cousins, which was true, but they weren't my kin. So
What and what about your adoptive brother? Like, did the two of you talk about it, or was it just that like this is not, it's an elephant in the room and
we
it's
never talked about it growing up really at all. It wasn't until I found my people that I was encouraging my brother to do something, and he really was not interested at all. And he probably thought I was sort of cheating on my parents somewhat.
yeah, yeah,
And but recently he connected with his people, and I kind of helped him a little bit, helped him connect with the search angel, and I did a little search myself to help give info to
good.
search angel. So that felt really good. I get a great rush out of that.
Yeah.
I would love to do that someday.
So
or
you're
either
still in contact. That's good too. For
Yeah,
him. Yeah.
we've had our rough patches. It was really hard when our mom was dying. She had a very quick um uh death, related to lymphoma. And
Mm,
during that time it was very strained, and for a number of years after, I think because he lived 40 minutes away and I was, up here in Oregon. And
mhm.
so a lot of the stuff kind of fell to him. I would fly down like monthly, but now recently, since he connected with his other sisters, I call them his younger sisters, I we've seemed to have we seem to be doing better, and that means a lot to me because we did get along really well when we were kids. And
did either one of you have any sort of, there's the stereotypical acting out
Right.
adoptee, or there's the behave
Compliant.
compliant adoptee.
I think we are both kind of compliant,
Mm.
and
I guess
people
you learned early
pleaser.
on that the waterworks would happen, so you had to
Yeah.
toe the line, I
Yeah,
guess.
and our dad was very strict, or they're
Mm.
both very strict with us, but we had to, I tell my kids now we had to like sneak around to do anything, because we weren't allowed to do anything. They were so worried about everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I tell my friend down the street, like if she was older and my mom really trusted her, and I'm like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to do anything. You know?
So then how did so you found out like, okay, I can't really talk about this. So
Yeah.
do you just stuff it down for years and until
Yeah,
you
and
hit your
that's
late 20s when you decide I'm gonna look?
yeah, it's and that's kind of I always had like digestive issues
Yeah.
even
Mm-hmm.
I
when
was
I
I
gonna
was
say
think,
we
little.
stuff it down, but like
mm-hmm.
you're dealing with it.
Yeah, of
Yeah, I just would I feel
course,
like
the body, yeah.
Yeah.
ball everything up and just kind of and put it over here. And I
Mm-hmm.
try to not do that now. I mean, like listening to you guys and a couple other podcasts has really helped me not do that anymore. And
Yeah.
my stomach's a lot better.
Yeah.
It's
It's very like the body does keep a score, but we also have so many things with relationships or how we get close to people or just all these little things. When you talk to other adoptees, you're like, oh my goodness, it's so good to have community, right? I mean,
definitely, yeah, I've tried to reach out. I know another woman here in Westland, and I like tried to, I'm like, let's meet for coffee. And she's just not wanting to talk about any of that.
Mm.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes, everybody has their
Hmm.
different times in which they're ready to, I mean, there's so many layers. Like when you have parents from especially from that era, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're not safe to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
not safe. So you learn early on what to do to keep yourself in a good place with the parents who adopted you, right? Like you have to figure out a way to keep that safe because our message is you're that person will go away. Our original trauma, right, dictates
Yeah.
how we live the rest of our lives.
Yeah. That's true.
So yeah, it sounds like that your friend, who was it that described adoptees are either in the matrix or out of it? I can't remember. Somebody said that, but
Yeah.
I think there's some truth to that,
Yeah. And I'm kind of like hinting around. And have you ever listened to Adoptee podcast? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
It's
yeah.
all
I
right.
have I have friends on all sides too. And and now we have this podcast and you feel a little
Yeah.
bit, funny. It's like I have a friend that we avoid it, you know. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of I think she looks at me like, please don't talk to me about all this.
Yeah. I have
So,
a adoptive cousin like that too. Like we share we like a lot of the same books. And so I'll say, oh, I need a book to read. And then I'll say, well, I've been reading some adoptee books. And he's like, I'm not interested in that.
Mm.
Okay.
I don't want to know that. I
I'd
don't want
rather
that.
just
You do
stay
you.
in my safe bubble, which is
Yeah,
understandable. Like
It is.
come out of the fog and everything changes.
absolutely.
Relationships change, your feelings change, your perspective changes, your thoughts on the world change. It's not always
And
easy.
it does change relationships too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really does. We were talking about last night, and then my husband, I was talking to him about last night. He's like, "Yeah, that was a weird year for him too." When I was coming out like in real time with Sarah
Yeah.
on the podcast, I was acting here at home with all these, don't you want to talk about this and look at this? And he's like, "Wow, it's interesting," but I'm like, "Oh, I think it shifts, and then I'm acting different, and everybody just not everybody wants to hear
No,
it
I
all
know
the time."
my sons have a hard time with it because they, loved my mom so
Right.
much. They feel like they're cheating on her or something.
I have a little of that too. That's
You
hard.
do?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
my parents have been gone for a while now, so I think it's a little easier for my son to talk about too, but I think he does feel a little that loyalty. He was so close to my parents because they're wonderful
Yeah.
grandparents, and it's
Yeah.
hard.
Same. It's getting, I feel like it's less so though.
Yeah.
They're trying to understand.
And how as you're going forward in this, how do you feel, in your world? Like how do you feel about it? Do you still feel, are you feeling like you're
Well,
coming
we haven't
through?
yet heard about
Yeah.
how you started the search and
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, living in California, I think had more open records. And so I joined like a search group. They couldn't really help me very much because I didn't really have a name.
Oh, you're
And
right.
so I I put on my bio that a dog kind of led
Right.
me. Yeah, my son was taking Texas fiddle lessons, and so we go and sit in the woman's house and she teaches him, and she had this rescue dog, and they're just in love with this dog. And so she says, oh, we got Latte's DNA done, and she's pit bull, and whatever, all these different breeds. I'm like, oh, and I got in the car and I thought, they know more about that dog than I know about me,
Right.
and so I went home and told my husband that. And then that night, I was trying to look up what year it was. I believe it's like 2012. There was a commercial for 23andMe that night. And my husband's like, Ellen, come in here. And so that night I signed up for a 23andMe test. And then I did that, and third cousins on there, not really very much,
Oh,
a
yeah.
while ago. And then I transferred my DNA to Ancestry, because I was on like a Yahoo New York State DNA adoptees group, where they get tons of emails every day. And so they said to transfer your DNA to as many places as you could. So I did that, and nothing really came of it. And then I was painting my boy's bathroom in 2015, and I'm like, I think I'm going to check my Ancestry account, just as a break from painting. And a close relative popped up all of a sudden. And so I sent that to the search angels in New York State, DNA adoptees, I think it was.
Mhm.
And there were two women kind of working together, and they were able to figure out that woman was my aunt. And so my birth mom was her sister.
Oh, on your birth
Mm.
mom's side. Okay.
Yeah. And so they just started sending me all these things, like, she was in a program, like all these newspaper articles. She was in a music program when she was 8,
The aunt or your birth mother?
my birth mom. They
Oh,
found her, like within an hour. I
okay.
had her
Oh,
name,
wow.
Within
phone
an
number,
hour.
and photos. Yeah. That's all they needed, was the aunt's name. And I messaged the aunt first, and she didn't really understand what this meant. And so she gave me her name. And so from that, they were able to kind of backtrack and, figure out who, do I say my birth mom's name? I don't know. She's
No,
still alive.
Up
you
to
don't
you.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to you. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so it found her, and then it took me about 2 weeks to get the courage to contact her, because I was so sure. I had registered on all those search sites, and I was so sure, like, she didn't want me to find her. Like,
Because she wasn't popping up.
yeah, nowhere. And so it took me 2 weeks, and I called her, and she like fumbled with her phone, like I could hear her go, oh shoot, and then hang up. And so I'm like, ah. So it took me another week to get the courage, because I thought, maybe she knew where I was, and she hung up on purpose, and blah, blah, blah. So I called, and I got her voicemail, and she had that Central New York accent. And I left her a message, a script that the search angels told me to use, I don't know if this date means to you, and I was born then, this is my name, blah, blah, blah. And about an hour later, I got a call from her, and I saw the 315 area code. I'm like, ugh. And I answered it, and I said, hello. And she goes, in her accent, hello, honey, I think I'm your mother.
Aw.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So that was.
And how's
very
it
emotional.
been? She's still alive, you said?
Yeah. So this all
And you
kind
got the details of your quick
Yeah.
sideway question.
Yeah.
Did you ever, growing up, before you knew the Central New York piece, when you heard an accent like that, did you ever feel anything about it?
Oh yeah,
Like-
well, we would go back all the time.
Oh,
So,
right. But
Yeah.
but I mean, looking at all my adoptive family, and they all looked alike. And I remember sitting on the couch and just watching all their similarities, and
Yeah.
just being fascinated with all that. But yeah, it was. I didn't know I didn't think about what to expect, or expect to even ever hear her voice. So that was, yeah. I
And
do
did you
have
plan a time to meet, or did you start with calls, or how did that?
Yeah, we
like-
started with phone calls, and then pretty quickly. Sorry, go
But she
ahead.
tells you the story, right, about your birth, and you're like, hey, wait, this is
Yeah.
not what I was told. Did you connect those dots? And
Yeah,
Go.
she kind of spit it to me. It's not like a fabulous story, but so it would take her, like she'd give it to me in little bites. And she
Yeah.
said, I'll never lie to you, but sometimes I'd like give her a question and she'd have to think about it and then come back and answer. She was really good about that, really careful. Because I think she didn't want to hurt my feelings too. But yeah, I didn't meet her until my adoptive mom died. um let's see, September 2017. And
Mhm.
so the next year I flew out to meet her. My adoptive cousin in that area actually knew her because they're both in
Oh,
the real estate space.
they just happen to know each other.
Yeah, yeah. And she so I went and stayed at his house and I met her and I got to meet it's a long story, but I got to meet her first cousin. So my first cousin once removed and we're really close. I talked to her a lot. And then I got to meet her brother and her my other cousin Julie's son. So that was
Mhm.
really, profound. And then I have funny stories. I don't know how much time we have. I have a funny story about meeting the paternal side. I
Wait, one question.
Oh, sure.
Did you have siblings through her?
Yeah,
Did
no,
she,
No,
and
she
what,
never had any children.
she
oh, she
didn't.
didn't.
No,
So
she
was she
married
waiting to hear from you and really happy to hear from you? And
she married two older men. Like she married one older man and I don't think he had kids and then he passed away. And then she married another older man who had already had his children. And so oddly, I'm like connected with her stepdaughter because I got to meet all of them when I went back too. And they're just she's so lucky. They're just wonderful people. And she's in a
was
home
she
to
happy
visit
to hear
her.
from you? And I mean, like
Very, very.
had been waiting to hear from you and
Well, she never felt like she knew where I went. And she went back to working at that restaurant and she said, my parents brought me in and she saw me. Like,
No.
just, yeah. And she said she had just gotten off her shift.
Oh,
She was like sitting at the lunch counter and she just watched me with them when I was
hmm.
like a young toddler. And that must have been right before we moved.
and your parents didn't know that was her
No,
because they didn't know who that was. Yeah, wow. Mm,
yeah.
Wow.
it's
Oh, how
painful.
painful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So she,
Gosh.
I feel for her. She had a rough life. Her mother passed away when she was 13, had
Mm.
like a cardiac event.
Mm.
And when she was quite young. So she always tells me she was kind of a wild child.
And
And
really on her own, you know?
yeah, because her
What,
older sister, moved out of the house. She was married and
mm.
her brother had been kicked out of the house because her father thought he caused the mother to die.
Oh
Just
gosh.
really, really lots of trauma.
Yeah, lots of
Ah.
I feel
trauma.
for her. Yeah.
What I'm just curious, was your father an older man?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has a
He
thing for
was
the older men.
so she went her story is that she went down to the corner bar. There's a cigarette machine. So she went to buy cigarettes and he was there. And so she kind of meet with him. And he told her he was 24, she was 17, and he was really 32,
Oh, yeah.
married with two daughters.
Mm.
Nice.
And so she said she didn't know he was married at first. And when she found out he was, she broke it off. And but then it was too late. I was already on my way. So she never told him. She just
Oh, she didn't.
cut him off. Yeah. She said, I'm not a home wrecker, which
Uh,
is so sad.
yeah.
I'm 17.
I
Like you think they
know.
wanted you. But
So now you have, so clearly you've found him for the family. You started
yeah.
to say there
Yeah.
was a story.
Yeah, another funny story. So she knew his name and everything. And so my cousin Julie's really into ancestry. And so she's like, I know him, I know his family. And so she for a year or so, I was like, oh, he's married. I don't want to mess anything up. And then Julie said, okay, I'm gonna go meet his adult daughter. And her husband, I think it was, or it might have been husband, son and daughter. Anyway, so she went to them and she said, there's this girl, she's born in the 60s. I think she's your father's. And the woman got, it was his daughter, because she got very upset and like, I can't imagine dad doing this to mom. And it was really awful. And so she showed them a picture of me. And she goes, my God, she looks exactly like I won't say his name. She looks like the other Joe Smith, over in whatever town. And so Julie left and she's like, we had the wrong one.
Oh,
And he did have a common name. And so,
okay.
anyway,
So she's thinking my dad would do, and her dad didn't do that.
no, so it turned out it wasn't him.
But she could recognize him. It's
Yeah,
a small world thing.
I looked
here.
enough like my birth dad that they could see the resemblance and know, because they knew him.
Crazy.
They knew him. And they're probably very distantly related. But yeah, so anyway, we finally found him, but at that point, the real Joe Smith was deceased.
Oh,
And which is sad. But he has from his first marriage, he had a daughter, Carrie, who I've connected with. She lives up in Seattle and she's awesome. She's an artist and she owned
like you.
This is your half
frame
sister.
shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's really awesome. I want to see her again. It's been a number of years since I've seen her. But
So these were the kids when he was.
no, this is a previous marriage.
Oh, previous.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then he got married again and he had 2 daughters. And then 6 months later, after I was born, had a son.
So there's 5 siblings?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4
So
5 total of
siblings.
kids and
Oh.
4.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4 plus me.
Mm-hmm.
And have you met them, been in touch?
I've been on the phone with the son, and but he told me that his sisters don't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and then when he finally did the math and figured out our
Birthday.
I was born in between his sisters and him, he just sort of kind of ghosted me a little bit, didn't really want to talk to me as much. So I don't know.
This is daunting because I have a similar dad story a little bit, but I'm a little bit like, oh, I wonder how it's, yeah, I was just, but a lot of protection of the fathers back then, right? I have my mother wrote these letters like, oh, it's not his fault. He's already engaged with someone. Well, okay. He's involved.
Yeah, it kind of is,
Very
but
protective. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
going through that just right this moment, not with a father, but my birth mother was adopted. And a search angel helped me find. I know who my grandmother, and I'm in touch with that whole family. But the missing piece was always, well, who was my birth mother's father? So my grandfather. So a search angel helped me, and she narrowed it down. The only definitive way is going to be if one of them does a DNA test, but it seems like it's 90% sure that it's him. And so my guess it would be my aunt adopted a daughter. So I'm in touch with the adopted daughter who has built a family tree on Ancestry with her adoptive family, but I connected her with a search angel so she can find her birth family, the same search angel.
Wow.
But at any rate, she told her mom about me, my aunt. She accepts it, but doesn't want to tell the other siblings, my aunts and uncles. And I'm like, well, will she take a DNA test?
Right?
So now
Yeah,
she was
please.
going to talk to her this weekend about will
Oh.
she take a DNA test?
Oh.
So
I hope she does it.
yeah, but it's so funny. It's like it was so long
It's
ago.
so long
People
ago.
will understand, and
Who cares?
who cares? It's so long ago, but yeah. Tread lightly. It's baked in, right?
It is
Baked in.
Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my sister,
Shame is baked in.
Yeah. You're
my
right.
half sister Carrie was at NPE,
Oh.
and she found out when she was 21 that her dad was really her adopted dad.
Oh,
Yeah. So
that makes her more open to you then, obviously.
yeah. And we joke about how many more of us are there out there?
Oh, I'm sure there might be more.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I guess he was really fun,
I'm
boisterous,
sure.
popular
Charming.
guy.
A charming rake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know when I've ever used that word, but it seems
Yeah, I like it
appropriate.
though. I'm gonna adopt that word. Adopt that word.
Adopt. Well, Ellen, thank you so much. This has been
Thank
really
you.
fun and interesting.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting.
yeah,
I
And
love
just the
talking to
artist
you.
thing, right? It's like even we just talked about when we got on that you're an artist and then your half sister is an artist. It's just
Yeah. And there's
it's
artists on the maternal side too.
uh-huh.
So, my cousin Julie is an artist and there's some other ones. So it's like they should have let me.
Yeah, right. You
yeah,
don't need a
yeah,
business degree.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
doing
Enjoyed
this.
Thanks
that.
for coming on. It's been great meeting you
It really
Same.
has. Thank
and
you.
sharing your story. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.